Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff. Well, as always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, and commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is N2E Fantasy. We are also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
On this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, we are releasing our 2025-24 Dynasty rookies. But first, we have some league news to cover. Jeff, your favorite quarterback just got re-signed. You want to talk about it?
Oh boy. So it seems that the San Francisco 49ers and quarterback Brock Purdy have agreed to a 5-year, $265 million deal, which is roughly $53 million a year. A little rich for my blood, but if you really drill down into this deal, it basically equates to a 3-year, $181 million deal, and then it's a we'll see after that. So it does seem like the San Francisco 49ers do have an ability to get out of the deal after 3 years if it's not working for them with minimal dead cap. And it does seem like Brock Purdy also weaseled out a no trade clause. Alex, is this the best Brock Purdy could have done? How do you feel about the 49ers moving forward?
I think this is the best deal that Brock Purdy was going to get. And I think it's the best situation for him to be. It doesn't make sense for him to move on to a new system and have to learn that, have to adjust to different players. He knows all of the pass catching options already on this team. Uh, I can't imagine anything better for him, especially getting that no trade clause, which that was kind of unexpected. For the 49ers side, I know several people think that they shouldn't have paid Brock Purdy and have maybe targeted a different quarterback. At this point, I don't think that there's anyone else that they can get unless they pick really high in the next couple drafts and have a chance to replace him. At this point, they have the 5-year deal. I can't imagine bringing somebody else in. So they are committing to him. He was a much better version than the quarterbacks that they previously had. I think he's better than the version of Alex Smith that they had, better version of Jimmy Garoppolo. And he's still pretty young.
So I would agree with a lot of that. One thing, though, that determines success of a quarterback after they get paid is how well a team develops players around them with their picks, because they're not going to be able to pay as many top-end players, so they're going to have to draft and develop. And I can't recall, and maybe Ricky Pearsall will be the exception to this, but I can't really recall the last 3 years of impact players that the 49ers have drafted and developed right now, which kind of seems like this could be a volatile situation over the next 3 years.
Ayuk, Kittle?
How do you feel about him? Do you think he's a dynamic player? I just put you on this spot.
Ayuk is a
Enough to
difficult
get
wide
paid.
receiver. Ayuk is a difficult wide receiver for me to pin down because he has the athleticism, but he's inconsistent. And then they paid him a lot, and then he got hurt. I think he'll come back. I think he could be a buy low player right now, but a lot of fantasy players don't seem to be interested at all because it seems risky. I think Juwan Jennings is a reliably really good wide receiver as well. I think Pearsall showed flashes before he got hurt himself. I think there's a good core there. They re-signed Kittle as well. So 4 really good pass catchers that are under contract for at least the next couple seasons together. I think that's a really good group. And they brought in, I think, a 4th-round wide receiver as well to kind of groom behind those guys. We'll see.
Yeah, I know you're focused on the pass catchers, and I kind of put you down that lane, but I was trying to think of offensive linemen, that have been drafted and developed, defensive players that have been drafted and developed. It's not going to work when you pay the quarterback unless you can draft and develop players also.
Well, they 2 years in a row lost two of their most important linebackers who they drafted and developed. So Aziz to the Texans the last offseason, and then Greenlaw to the Broncos this offseason. They lost a safety to the Broncos as well that they drafted and developed. So defensively, they do a fairly good job. They also Buckner as well. They drafted and then they traded to the Colts, I believe, or let him walk in free agency. But they do a really good job with the defensive side. Offensive line, they do a pretty good job. They're kind of revolutionized drafting offensive linemen who score really well in agility in the combine and in pro days, and they seem to do a pretty good job there. It's just the tackle position that they've had problems developing, which is why they acquired Trent Williams a few years ago.
Absolutely. And they might have to do something similar again because they haven't had much luck at all in that at that position. Also, when your quarterback goes from $2.5 million salary to a $53 million salary, obviously that's $50 million worth of salary that needs to be off of the roster. So that makes sense that those two linebackers are no longer with the team. And we will see if there's any other moves. Like this could be Christian McCaffrey's last year. Also, it was pointed out to me this week that I think Purdy was 1-6 in games without Christian McCaffrey last year, or maybe a little bit better record than that, but he had a not good record without a top running back right next to him. So we'll see how that works as well.
Well, they have a much easier schedule this year. Also, in the
That's true.
defensive area, they did resign Fred Warner, so that's another defensive player that they developed, and now he's getting a second contract.
Yeah, they just haven't developed these players in the last 3 years, though. So they haven't drafted and developed dynamic players since they brought Brock Purdy onto the team, basically.
Ayuk got injured this last year, so
He's on the second year of his second deal, so he's been on the team almost 6 years now. He's going into
and
year
then
6.
Debo had success on this team too before
Year 8.
injuries slowed him down.
But they haven't done well recently with developing. And people are thinking that Shanahan is having more and more and more of a say on the team, and it's kind of hindering the direction of the team.
Well, I would say Juwan Jennings is relatively recent, is he not?
Yeah, yeah. He just did the second round tender last year, so I'm assuming he's a 5-year veteran now.
But
But
to your point, their biggest whiff, what set them back was trading so many assets for Trey Lance and that being a mega bust. Because if they had those picks back and they selected someone else, you could be saying how smart they were for the picks that they selected. It's an unknown. They threw those picks away on Trey Lance.
and they gave up on that pick very quickly too.
hmm
But Juwan Jennings is a 7th rounder in 2020, so this will be his his 5th season, 6th season. So they haven't done well lately. That's kind of was my point there. It wasn't the fact that they stink at it or anything like that, because they have a track record. But something happened after that Trey Lance deal. I don't know if that was a tipping point in the relationship between Shanahan and the GM, but Lynch appears to have wanted Lance, and once he realized how much of a bust that was, it seemed like Shanahan started taking over the personnel of that team a little bit.
Well,
That's just me guessing.
I think he should. I think they probably split it now. I think Shanahan probably does the offensive side and Lynch does the defensive side because Lynch played safety. Lynch is one of my favorite safeties of all time. I don't
Me
know
too.
how many of y'all played the old school Madden where Lynch was still playing and he was playing for the Broncos.
Light
It
him
was like
up.
a cheat code. You draft him even though he's like 36, 37, and he can without looking, somehow intercept the ball every single time or light up whoever caught the ball. Anyway, I think just to sum up what we were talking about here, one of the reasons why they don't have recent guys that they hit on was because they didn't have the picks available because they threw it away on one player, Trey Lance, previously. Also, I think we get greedy and get spoiled when rookies have great first years because that has not historically been the norm across the NFL. Usually it takes guys multiple years to develop. And then I don't think it's for those reasons, I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that they can't develop players. I think they've done a good job when they've had the picks.
Yeah, and it requires high picks for them to do it, I guess was more my point.
Yeah, well, and they keep trading their picks for veterans too. So it's really hard to say they can or can't develop players when they don't even have the picks.
Maybe the better way to put it is that they don't want to develop picks. That's why they trade them away for
Could
veterans.
be, but
Which is
we'll see if some of
interesting.
these. I was gonna say the latest things that they've been drafting are a bunch of different running backs. So they have all kinds of running backs. They just traded away Jordan Mason this offseason,
Okay.
and Elijah Mitchell isn't there anymore. So we'll see if some of these running backs behind Christian McCaffrey can actually do something, and that will give us a hint if they're developing people.
And they've always struggled with running back health as well. And I don't know if that's a system thing because you would think the laws of average would have equal out at some point, but it feels like they go through 4 backs every season.
Yeah, I just think that's because they're one of the run heavy teams.
Yeah. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey made it one whole season with them, though. So, I mean, that was one guy that did it. Magical season, too.
I just think it's a brutal division, and I feel like you get more injuries in the
Yeah.
NFC West than some of the other ones.
Well, you're going to have it in the AFC West now. But here's a move that both of us, I believe, disagree with, that the Eagles extending head coach Nick Sirianni to a multi-year extension. Alex, are you down on this also, or is it just me?
No, I'm down on it as well. I don't think he's a good coach. I think he's still kind of immature, and I don't know. I don't know if it's just the roster or he's a better coach than we realize, but I feel like he just gets lucked into a good situation year after year, talent wise on the roster, because Howie, the GM, does a very good job of bringing in talent, filling needs, and I think that 2 of the last 3 years he's had good coordinators as well, and we'll see if that continues this year. Jeff, I think you're probably in the same boat, but I don't know if you want to expand.
Yeah, I think losing Kellen Moore is going to be an interesting unknown. They moved on from a whole bunch of their veteran secondary, so that's another unknown. Sometimes veteran presence a good thing, even if they don't contribute a lot to game day. And that was a lot of turnover in one season, but we will see what they look like this year. And we will also see if the brotherly shove or the tush push gets banned, as that is set to be voted on this week. That will be done with the league owner meeting as well as playoff reseeding. And I'll go first on this, Alex. The tush push ban, I believe, should be done. It's not a fun play to watch. The NFL is an entertainment company, and it is time to eliminate that. And you made a good point to me offline that the Green Bay Packers were the ones that brought this to the table, and they're the only team without an owner. So it makes you believe that the commissioner or someone behind the scenes is potentially having the Green Bay Packers bring it to the table so there isn't any blowback on a particular owner. So that would have been really smart on that front. And then before I let you go here, Alex, playoff seeding, I believe each division is their own culture. And sometimes coming out of a very tough division with a not great record should be much more rewarded than a team that's coming out of a really easy division that has a couple more wins than them. So I don't know how you fall on the playoff seeding, but I know how you fall on the tush push ban, and I will let you break that down for us here.
I'm not a fan of the tush push ban at all. I think it's pretty cowardly of the NFL to want to ban it because a couple teams do it more successfully than the rest of the league and they have a hard time stopping it. But it's not an automatic play. It's like for the Eagles, it's a 81%, 82% success rate. in most cases. For other teams, it's a little bit less. I think there are teams that can stop it, and there's really only one injury that's even occurred because of it, and it's Chris Jones of the Chiefs because he put himself in a weird horizontal position that had no chance of success if he knew anything about physics and torque and force. Uh, so it's not a player safety thing. If, as Jeff and I have talked about this a lot offline, if it is advertising related because some fans find it boring, then I can see them actually pushing for that. They just can't say it outright. I think if it is that, they should absolutely say that's the reason, because that would make more sense than player safety or competitive fairness or anything like that. And it definitely seems like there probably is a push to actually have it banned because of how it was introduced, having Green Bay do it without an owner. So no specific person can be blamed or be seen as the leader of the charge against the tush push. So I don't like the situation. If it does get banned, I'm not a fan of it, but it seems like that's the way it's going.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that we don't know. So I understand your want for knowledge, but yeah, I think that there's some mystery behind the scenes on the motive of this. All right, what do you think of the playoff seeding though?
Did they pass it or no?
No, that should be voted on in the next 24 to 48 hours.
I like the idea if they have the stipulation where a team that won their division does not have a winning record, so if they have a losing record, that they not be guaranteed a home game. I like that element if that's what they go with. But if they just go overall best record, I'm not a fan of that at all.
Yeah, that's not what the Lions proposed. Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, Team 4, Team 5, Team 6, Team 7 based on record only.
Yeah.
I hate it, but at that point, what's the point of even having conferences? Why don't we just label people 1 through 14?
You mean divisions? What's the point of having divisions?
No, conference. If we're going to basically get rid of divisions here, what's the point of even having conferences too? We might as well just, because then you could end up with the Chiefs and the Bills in the Super Bowl. I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like you're ruining that tradition, and I wouldn't want them to get rid of conferences either. But basically, what's the difference is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
You're one step away from just rating teams 1 through 14 and just having whomever play whomever.
Yeah.
But we'll see what the NFL does with that. I don't like how either one of these uh, are written, so that's part of my issue, but I'm not going to be the one in the office voting for these or against these, so we will take what they give us, as always. All right, on to
All right.
happier topics, Alex. Our top 24 in 25 with our Dynasty rookie rankings, and we're going to do our top 24 picks, and we're going to rotate between Alex and myself. And Alex, I'll let you go ahead and get kicked off with 1.1 on your list.
It's Ashton Genty. Because we're talking about non superflex, single quarterback, half PPR. So Ashton Genty is clearly number one for me, and I think it would be probably number one even if it was a superflex.
Yeah, same. It's going to be Genty for me. I know I rip on him enough. I never, ever, ever called him a invaluable rookie, but I think that rookies are overrated, especially in year 1 as far as redraft leagues go.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
there's no one else that's going to have the same impact as him.
No, absolutely not. A guy that'll come close is the Los Angeles Chargers running back, and he's my number 2, Omarion Hampton. And Alex, who's your number 2?
So number two, just based off of path to touches, and is Tet McMillan, the wide receiver out of Carolina. I don't like his overall
What?
dynasty ceiling for the long term, but based off of landing in the situations a lot of these rookies went to, Tet probably has the best situation to have early success. So I'm going with Tet here.
All right. Wow. All right. That was a little bit of a surprise for me. It's on my hometown, my team, Carolina Panthers, and yeah, you're a lot higher than I am on him. But who is your number 3?
Well, my number 3 is Omarion Hampton. I do like him. I have him in the same tier as Tet, and I have another player in the same tier with those three. Ashton Genty obviously is in a tier above everybody, but Hampton, he for the long haul, I think he'll be better, but he has Najee Harris to compete with. Year one, I think that they're going to try to split between them, so I would temper your expectations year one, but towards the end of the year, he might earn the starting job and he might be really good for fantasy playoff run.
Yeah, you mentioned tears, and tears are what you're gonna cry if you expect Ashton Genty to be a top 10 running back in year one.
I have Genty as a top 5 running back year one. So,
Well, then you're gonna be tearing up your tears.
all right, who do you
It's
have
okay.
at number 3?
At number 3, I have Quinshawn Judkins from Cleveland.
I don't know what you were going to say there before.
I have no idea either, because I was going to say that I'll send you some tissues for the season. And then I jumped right into the player's name. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But
Interesting.
yeah, absolutely. I like his path. I like the offense overall. I like the coach overall. If they could figure out some semblance of a quarterback position, we know Chubb was successful with Flacco 2 years ago. So we'll see if Judkins can be just as valuable with Flacco or whoever is behind center. But my number 4 is my first wide receiver, and that's Travis Hunter. So that is my number 4 pick from Jacksonville.
It's also my number 4 pick.
Really?
I'm not a huge fan of him, especially not year one. If he spends significant time at the wide receiver position, gets coached up on his route running, really works at it, I think he has a lot of athletic ability and natural talent that could be polished. And for dynasty purposes, the long haul, I think he could be a really good wide receiver and potentially eclipse Tet McMillan's ceiling. I don't know if I want to actually draft him. That's why I have him in a tier with Tet and Omari and Hampton. So I feel like you can switch any of those three around and still be okay. I actually have Quinshawn Judkins number 5, and I thought I would be higher on him than you were because I was much higher on him before he went to Cleveland. I don't like the quarterback situation they're in. I don't like that they seem like they're going to be a bottom dwelling team this year. I don't like that they brought in Samson as well in the 4th round. So I feel like that's going to limit his upside both for the short term and for the long term, even though I really liked him as a college running back and I liked him throughout the draft process. I think in some ways, I think he's actually better as a running back than Omarion Hampton. But I'm not super thrilled with Cleveland, but this is a Cleveland organization. We saw Nick Chubb be very successful in. So I'm keeping him still pretty high as like a blue chip player in rookie drafts, and I like him at number 5.
Interesting. I am curious, though, if you would have traded George Kittle for the 4th pick, who you would have taken, because it wouldn't have been Travis Hunter, as you stated offline, and you have Travis Hunter as your 4th player, so it must mean someone ahead of him was available.
Yeah, I probably would have taken Judkins there based off of what my team needed. Because my team desperately needs a running back because I still only have one usable starting running back at the moment. So I'm going to have to hit free agency pretty hard to
Yep.
offset that. Or I could have then retraded down to get multiple picks and pick a little bit later if it was possible, but not the easiest league to trade in right now.
No. I mean, you could have got a 4th for Kittle, though, so.
Apparently, I could have gotten the 4th overall pick for Kittle, which is insane.
And then
The
some.
stupid it's the stupidest thing ever. And this is RSO where Kittle only had a 1 year deal. He can be extended because he was a franchise tag player and it would only be like 20 million a year. So
That's chump change.
I mean it's possible. But yeah,
All right.
that was something to find out later. But anyway, who do you have at number 5?
I'm rubbing salt into the wound, but I have Tet McMillan here at number 5. And you could kind of see that I went with 3 running backs to start, and I went with the 2 receivers right after that. Just kind of where I feel like they'll slot in. It is interesting that Travis Hunter was drafted at number 2. So that is an interesting investment in a player that we have ranked at number 4.
Not just drafted at 2, they traded
Traded up
a
and
future
drafted.
first to move up 3 spots from 5 to 2. So they're really invested in him.
Exactly. All right. I will hop to my number 6, and that is Tyler Warren, tight end for Indianapolis.
Do you remember telling me that tight ends are going to get a bump because of Brock Bowers' success last year?
Mhm.
Remember telling me that?
Mhm.
And then you're putting him at number 6? You're doing it.
Yep, I
You're
ran
doing
out.
it
I
yourself.
ran out of players that I liked, so I went with more draft capital at this point.
All right. I have him lower. I have at number 6 Travion Henderson. So I like both
Okay.
Ohio State running backs. They're in the same tier with the number 7 player for me. So I have Amika Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio. I have, coincidentally, I should have made this a red tier because all 3 of them are from Ohio State. So I have an Ohio State tier right here. All of them are blue chip guys, in my opinion. All of them are long-term starters. They all have someone in their way, potentially, blocking them from getting the full workload themselves. But Travion Henderson, I think, with New England turning down multiple offers to move down from the 38th overall pick, and with all the needs they had, taking Henderson there when they have Stevenson already locked under contract, that signals a lot to me. He's someone who doesn't fumble. He's good in pass protection. He's a good receiver. He's a home run hitter. He went to the alma mater of Vrabel, which I've always thought was a big, important piece for him. So he is locked into me as the potential leader in a committee, and then might be able to prove that he's an actual workhorse running back at some point. I think he's just going to be the leader in the clubhouse of a 3-team committee, but with the best home run ability. Whereas Egbuka goes behind a team that already has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, although both of them are getting older. Evans has 1 year left on his deal. Godwin may not be there much longer, may not be rushed in to play week 1, but I think Egbuka is an incredible player. I think that they'll go to more 3 wide receiver sets. I really like him a lot, and I feel like he's in the JSN mold this year, along with another wide receiver later in this class.
Yeah, I think with Henderson, I think your hopes are a little bit high on him. I think the coaching staff is very high on Ramondre Stevenson still, so just be something to look out for the next 3 seasons ish, maybe 2 to 3 seasons. So we'll see what happens there. About Ibuka, though, he will play this year, and he'll probably be in 3 receiver sets, but he'll probably rotate with Jalen McMillan. And you say they're not going to rush back Godwin. Godwin will be 10 months post injury for a broken ankle that should heal within 4 months. They almost had him back for the postseason. He will be fine for week 1. So I don't think there's any rushing back for a guy that's just a bone injury.
Okay, we'll see. He's almost 30, so
That's true. That's true. He is elite, though. He was having one of the best years of his career when he went down.
yep. But the older you get, the harder it is to bounce back from injuries like that.
Absolutely. And it's weird that he signed like a 3-year deal too with them. So it wasn't just like a one-time franchise tag. I don't know why they
And
just didn't slap the Franny on him.
the 3-year deal is really a 2-year deal because I think the guaranteed money is only over the first 2 years.
But they didn't slap the franchise tag on him. Just do a one and done. Move on. Maybe he wouldn't have signed for it. All right. My number 7, though, is Colston Loveland, tight end out of Chicago. And that could be something that could be flip flop back and forth for me with Loveland and Warren. Obviously, I think Loveland has the better year this year with Ben Johnson. And I think Warren is going to struggle a little bit with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson this year, but this is more of a long-term outlook for these 2 players for me. My 8th pick is Travion Henderson, so we are 2 picks off on him. So I believe he's the next best back available. And especially if Ramondre goes down, great back to get the majority of the workload going forward. Who do you potentially have at number 8?
I have a different running back here. I have Caleb Johnson, the
Oh,
Pittsburgh running back. I'm not a huge fan of his as a prospect, but I think he went to one of the only situations where he could potentially be successful in Pittsburgh, who also runs an outside zone scheme with Arthur Smith, and they lost Najee, so there's a lot of carries to go around. Jalen Warren only has a year left on his deal, I believe, and I don't think he's proven to be able to handle a full workload himself. They have plenty of touches for Caleb Johnson to go around. I do have concerns that he may not be able to pound it up the middle because although he's built like Najee, he does not run like Najee, doesn't lower his shoulders, but he is a little bit faster than Najee was. So we'll see how successful that is, but I do think that there's a lot of touches available for him.
yeah, I would concur with that. My only concern with him is how involved he'll be in the pass game. So that's my only concern there. Najee was quite involved in the pass game, and that kind of really helped his fantasy value.
So Caleb Johnson's really good at the type of running back routes that Arthur Smith employs. So like running back swings going out
Mm-hmm.
to the side, really good at that and screens. So I think he'll fit in perfectly to that system. I
And
only
who's going to
worry
be their
about the short
quarterback this
yardage.
year?
Most likely Aaron Rodgers. I can't imagine it being anyone other than Aaron Rodgers.
Well, still
But
waiting
but
for a contract to be signed there.
but maybe the Browns cut Joe Flacco and Joe Flacco would fit perfectly in with Pittsburgh as well.
Yeah, I heard this week that Flacco and Pickett are essentially playing for one roster spot this year. So
Well, I heard that Pickett and Gabriel are splitting first team reps already.
yeah, it depends who's there and who's not there, though. Is Flacco there now?
I doubt it. And Flacco's already familiar with the system, so it's probably just giving the young guys some snaps.
Yep. But I think by the end of the year, I think Shador will be the starter there down the stretch.
I don't know. Maybe by the end of the year, the Shador is closed on that. All right. So number 9 for me is new Chicago wide receiver Luther Burden the third. There's been a lot of
Dang.
talk about whether Rome Odunze or DJ Moore is going to get the Amon-Ra St. Brown role and who's going to play in the slot. And Ben Johnson was non-committal to either guy. And then they drafted Luther Burden at the top of the second round. So Luther Burden, who is very successful in the slot and is still good down the field as well, I think he's going to end up being a really good wide receiver for this team. Maybe not have huge numbers year one because I think they'll have DJ Moore for one more year unless he's all of a sudden traded before training camp starts. But I don't think DJ Moore is long for this team. He's quit on them before, and he's an inconsistent wide receiver. So I think Luther Burden and Romo Dunze are going to be the top two guys for the long haul, as long as Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are there.
All right. Hopefully that's a long, long time. Maybe the Bears will get their first 4,000-yard passer ever in the history of the franchise.
They have all the
But
weapons.
that's an interesting call. I'm gonna be honest with you. That was interesting over the tight ends. But yeah, you believe in him. You
It's
believe
one
in
of
him.
those situations where I think he went to the right team or the specific team to actually be able to use him.
Absolutely. Just don't expect him to be Amara St. Brown because that's what people
Yeah,
think when they're like he's gonna be in the St. Brown role.
he's going to be used a lot. He's going to be moved around, but he's going to be used in the slot a lot, which is featured in this offense. That's what you need to key on. That doesn't mean he's going to be a Monroe St. Brown. It means he's
Yeah.
just going to be heavily focused.
That's fair. But we only have one version of Ben Johnson's offense that you included St. Brown the
Yeah.
entire time. So he might change his offensive scheme with different players. So like if you
Could be.
have Justin Jefferson, you're gonna make Justin Jefferson the focal point of the team, not your slot guy.
Well, looking at the Bears, I don't see a power runner in the mold of David Montgomery on the team. It's Swift and then Roshan. I'm wondering if they'll even run the ball that much or if they'll go like 70% passing.
Oh, they will. Mr. Nick Chubb will be their running back here in the next couple of weeks. I have on good
Yeah, you're
authority.
you're holding out hope.
For what though? I already traded him away, so it doesn't help me.
No,
But
no, you have him in a league still.
I do. But I have him for way too expensive. I think he's the number one salary in the league, so he's probably gonna be excommunicated or one of the top salaries in the league. Right. Without further ado, my number 9 is Amika Abuka. So I do believe in his talent as well, and I do believe his path might take a little bit longer, kind of like Travion Henderson, who is my number 8. I think their paths could be a little bit longer than we're comfortable with, but I'm okay with waiting on players a little bit as their lane opens up or an injury happens or whatever happens. All right. My number 10, and this is going to shock you because I know you've already been against this player a little bit being this high, but it's RJ Harvey for Denver.
Why do you have RJ Harvey this high after you say in all the group chats, beware, he's already 24 and will be 25 when the season starts?
Well, I think you're at the spot right now where the player that you take, you're mostly expecting players probably after 8 to be or 8 or 9 to be on one contract and let them go. So he's in that safe spot where you could have him for 4 years and he could be the starter for 4 years. But I don't see Denver bringing him back. So if Denver doesn't bring him back at age 28, then why wouldn't you just move on from him? But he could be a legitimate starter for 4 years, though, and those don't come along every day. And he has a clearer path than Travion Henderson, who I have ahead of him because Travion has a little bit longer of a runway. But yeah, I think that he's the guy that could start year 1 and be an impact player for fantasy teams in year 1.
I would look at it as a lot of dynasty players want to look at like 5 to 7 years in advance, and that's just not reasonable. I think Dynasty, you want to look at maybe a 3 or 4 year time span. And you want to think about sometimes the rookie draft is what if I was taking this guy in a startup dynasty right now? Like, wouldn't I take like a Jonathan Taylor, or sorry, a JT right now who's 26? So why would I hesitate to take a 24-year-old running back that's probably going to be a starter for a high functioning offense? So I don't have a problem
Ex-
with it at all. I
exactly.
am just not as big on him as a prospect as other running backs. So and I know that Denver likes to use 3 or 4 running backs as well. So I have a hard time thinking he'll be good enough for a first round pick, but I don't have him that much further.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Payton does like a lead back, though, even though he likes to spread out the targets. And I'm just hedging my bet that it's going to be RJ Harvey right now. But back to your point, like, I don't think Harvey gets a second deal, but I also don't believe like Caleb Johnson gets a second deal with the Steelers as well. So if you had to have an answer on that, I don't believe that he gets a second deal at all.
Yeah, I mean, if he does, it won't be a very long deal.
Yeah.
But
Because
Peyton has
the
kept
Steel
running backs until like age 31 before.
Yeah, I was talking about Caleb Johnson, though, potentially getting a second deal with the Steelers. I don't believe that that'll happen either.
Well,
Steelers
Steelers,
typically move on from their backs.
yeah, almost notoriously, Steelers almost never give their own players a second deal.
Yep. So I put Harvey in the same boat that you put your number 8 pick, Caleb Johnson, in, basically. But you believe in him a little bit more as a runner, and I think Harvey has a chance to accumulate some additional catches and receiving yards.
Well, I also think they might be more willing to franchise tag Caleb Johnson as well.
Yeah, they could have franchise tagged Najee, though, who's 4 1,000-yard seasons, which I know you were down on Najee, but that is very hard to do consistently, get 1,000-yard rushing seasons.
Yeah, but it was more of him getting a lot of carries than it was being
I know, but
effective.
they made the playoffs. I think 3 out of the 4 years he was there, so it's not like they were sacrificing the team wins for him to get stats.
All
They
I
were
know
still
is
winning.
all I know is he was not an effective runner for them. but I also think Arthur Smith is a terrible offensive coordinator overall.
And I think Tomlin hasn't spent a lot of time on the offensive line or quarterback position in order to set his running backs up for success either. So
They've spent a lot of resources on their offensive line.
resources do not equate always to talent.
Well, I think
Once they lost the Pouncies.
their center Frazier could end up being one of the best centers in the league, and he was drafted recently. One of their
Yeah.
tackles could be really good as well. So we just don't
I
know who
think
the
he gets an
quarterback is.
upgrade. Yeah, I think he gets an upgraded situation though at the Chargers, so we'll see what happens there. But Alex, who is your number 10?
My number 10 is the Chargers wide receiver Trey Harris.
Oh,
I really like that pick a lot. He kind of reminds me in some ways of Rashee Rice and his skill set, but he's a little bit thicker. And I think he's perfect physical deep threat wide receiver who could also run hitches for the Chargers. I think he'll supplant Quinshon Johnston right away. I think he's a much better wide receiver. So I think he'll help this team a lot, and I think he'll be useful. I wanted to draft him, but I already had Lad McConkey on my team, and I don't want another situation where I have multiple wide receivers from the same team on my team.
I totally hear that, and I feel like a little bit of that was karma for you making fun of me saying Judkins' first name.
Yeah. To be fair, I wish Quentin Johnston what I wish I could forget about him being in the league. So
I know. Well, all I've taken from this is that you like thick wide receivers, so got me a little chuckle over here. Thicker Ray Rice. Got it. Or Rasheed Rice. Ray Rice is not good.
Ray Rice was a good player while it lasted, and then off the field did something pretty inexcusable. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. My number 11 pick is yet another wide receiver, and that's Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver for Houston out of Iowa State. He's not exactly a clone of Nico Collins like some people are trying to put out there, but I am a huge fan of his, and it is no coincidence that after the Texans took him, the two teams behind them immediately traded down because they wanted him as well. So I like him. I think he's going to cause fits for teams starting in two wide receiver sets with Nico Collins as well. And I think that he is going to also provide a safety net in case Nico gets banged up in any of the games as well.
Yeah, I know you like to point to the trade down of it all, but it's possible that someone else traded up for a player that they liked and that team couldn't say no. And you typically don't trade down until your pick is up on the clock. Like you don't typically do it 3 picks ahead of time.
Well, the two teams that traded down were the Titans and the Raiders, who both at that point needed a really good vertical wide receiver, and they ended up taking wide receivers later on in the draft.
Absolutely. But a lot of teams took wide receivers later on in the draft, so.
Yeah.
But that gets me to my 11th pick, and that's Matthew Golden, who was a first round pick. And I believe that the Packers will employ him correctly, and I believe he'll be the number 2 wide receiver to one Jaden Reed.
I'm just not a big fan of him, and I watched him both at the University of Houston and University of Texas. And I don't think he put enough on film or analytically or in the combine to really be a first round pick. I feel like they kind of reached, and I think he's to them probably an upgrade over Christian Watson, who hasn't been able to stay healthy. But to me, he kind of reminds me flashbacks of Sky Moore as well. They're about the same build, about same production. So I would be very nervous about that personally.
We will see. We will see. But that's why I don't have him up with Tet and Hunter, who were also first round receivers. So he's more closer to a little bit later receivers for me. My number 12 pick is Caleb Johnson. And I know we talked about him 3 picks ago for you. And that's where I'd be comfortable taking Caleb Johnson here. Your number 12.
My number 12 is tight end Colston Loveland. So I have him here, and I know you had him, what, 6, was it? That you had Colston Loveland?
7.
7? So I have him 5 spots later. I think this is where he should go. It's a very crowded room. I like his skill set, but I'm not sure he's going to put up stats long term to justify him going much higher than this. I'm not sure how much they're actually going to use a single tight end set. I know Detroit used multiple tight end sets and even put an offensive lineman at tight end and threw him the ball with Ben Johnson calling the shots. So I'm not sure. I think he's going to be a better real NFL player than fantasy player, if that makes sense.
That makes sense to me, but they also used a first round pick on him, and they only used a second round pick on Burden. So maybe Burden will be the odd man out of that crowded room.
I don't think so, but
We
I
will
really
see.
think DJ Moore will be gone within the next year, and then both of these guys will get more targets.
Yeah, is that even feasible with DJ Moore to have him gone?
Yeah, I think the Steelers are interested in DJ Moore.
We will see. We will see. All right, who is your number 13 pick? I can make a
My
guess if you took Loveland.
my number 13 pick is Tyler Warren.
They go together.
I think Warren has the potential to exceed him in fantasy, but I really want to see a better quarterback situation to feel comfortable with him.
Mhm.
I do think Danny Dimes would be better for him because he's more of the intermediate and short thrower. The weirdest thing, Anthony Richardson's a top 3 deep ball thrower in terms of accuracy compared to short range and intermediate where he is bottom 3 in the league, if not bottom 2. So Danny Dimes would be more equal, more well-rounded for this offense, but ultimately they need to get someone else better than both of these guys for me to really feel comfortable with Tyler Warren.
Yeah, and this was more the long play for me, so that's why I had him ahead of Loveland. But back to your DJ Moore assessment. So he's 28 right now. He signed a 4-year, $110 million extension that carries him through 2029.
What's the guaranteed money on that?
$43 million guaranteed. Though dead cap this year would look at 60 million because that's what would carry over from the last deal. That's a lot for a wide receiver. His cap hit is 24 million and his dead cap would be 60 million. So they'd be paying $36 million extra to get him off of the roster.
Is that based off of trading?
Trading, there's some things that could be worked out, it looks like, with trading, but you have to find a team that wants to trade for him. And I haven't heard of the Steelers rumor until you had just mentioned it, and I'm pretty up to speed with that stuff. I hadn't heard the
Anyway, I think
Godwin thing either until you mentioned it, so I need to know what some of your crazy sources are.
I think the DJ Moore thing would be next off season. That would probably be the soonest realistically that could happen. But
Yeah.
I think if he doesn't mature and he's already 28, if he doesn't mature with his attitude, they're gonna want him gone because you don't want someone that's gonna quit on you at any point.
Yeah, I get it. And I think a lot of it was from the coaching situation. And you heard that Caleb Williams didn't even want to go to Chicago because of the coaching situation and the franchise histories. I think we need to give him a little bit of a chance to play with it. Because if you think about it, DJ Moore's never played with a good franchise in his entire career.
Hey,
The
they might
poor
trade him
guy.
back to the Panthers at this point. Who knows?
They don't have any room right now unless Thielen retires.
Well, they have 2 elder statesmen at wide receiver now.
Who
So
was the other one?
Thielen and Renfro.
Yeah, Renfro's still in his 20s, though.
But anyway,
He did the American dream of retiring in your 20s, but then also unretired. All right. So we're on my 13. It looks like lucky number 13. And with my 13th pick, I will take Cameron Ward, Tennessee's quarterback.
interesting.
Thoughts there on taking the first quarterback?
No, that's fine. I don't think in rookie drafts unless you're in a super flex or 2 quarterback league, I don't think he's worth a first round pick. He's not as exciting as some quarterbacks that have rushing upside in the past, but I think he's
2.01.
solid there.
I know. I don't agree. I agree that he's not worth a first round pick. Hence why I took him at 201 in typical leagues. And then my number 14th pick is your buddy Luther Burden III. So he would go after the quarterback here for me.
My 14th pick is your buddy RJ Harvey.
Oh, look at that. My 10th pick is your 14th pick, and your 9th pick is my 14th pick.
And then 15 for me is Matthew Golden.
Okay, that's an interesting pick. A little bit later. No Ward yet, which will be interesting to see if Cameron Ward made your top players here. But what made you do Harvey over Golden? Because I also did Harvey over Golden.
He has a better chance to succeed right away, and I think,
and there's value in that, in getting someone that succeeds right away, even if it's only for a season or two, like your Thomas Rawls of the world.
I don't think either one of them is that good of a prospect for the long term, but Harvey will get the touches more right away, and I think Golden does have a chance to be a long-term project that could pay dividends, is how I would view it. So I don't think Golden is a finished product yet, and I think if they do work with him, he could be very good in the long term, but year one, I don't think he's going to be that useful.
We will see. I think we're on my 15th pick right now, and with my 15th pick, I have Trey Harris, wide receiver for the Chargers. What's your thoughts there?
I mean, I like Trey Harris.
I know you do.
I would take him in the first round. I have him at number 10.
I see that. So I'm never going to get him in any of the leagues that we're playing in. Basically, what you're saying there.
Unless I take the 9th pick or the 8th pick or the 8th player on my board. I mean, I'm going to stick to my board as much as I can.
Me too, but it's got to be team specific. So, like, if I'm picking 13 and Ward and Burden and Harris are there, I'm gonna not pick Ward because I have Josh Allen and Kyler Murray, and my quarterback position's pretty well sewn up. I would probably skip the quarterback and go to the two receivers. So it's really roster dependent. And there's some leagues where I have 8 receivers already, and I don't like to carry more than 8 receivers all season. And I might go with the running back over that, or the tight end, or... So it is all dependent on team. All right. So number 16 for me is Elijah Arroyo.
That is much higher than I thought you would put him.
I just like the potential that he has, and this completely drafting off of depth chart and potential and lost weapons, and there is a potential that he's a top tight end in this league. I don't know if that'll be year one.
I mean, Noah Fant is still there, but he has not been very good. Like, he's been a fantasy darling since he was with the Broncos, and he's never lived up to it. So
no,
I really like Arroyo. I don't like him that high, but I still have him later on in this same round.
All right. So who is your lucky number 16? I guess no one says lucky number 16, so
I'm sure someone out there does. But I have Cameron Ward here. I think he's a middle of the second round type player in this class. That's where I have him. And it's funny that you had him 13. I got him at the 209, which I think is 21 in the rookie draft that we just did. So that's a lot of value if that's the case.
That's a steal, in my opinion.
All right. My 17 is Cam Scattaboo, because I think it'll be a committee approach year one with him. I'm not a super fan of his. I know he's one of the polarizing players as well, along with some of the other guys that we've talked about. A lot of people really, really like him, and a lot of people really don't like him. I'm kind of in the minority in the middle that's kind of indifferent about him. He is a very physical guy, but he has a lot of tread on the tires, the tread taken off the tires in college. But he provides something for New York that they don't already have, and that is a physical bruiser to go with Tracy, who is a speedy back, and then Singletary, who is a solid all-around back, but not really great at anything kind of back. So it'll be quite the committee.
Absolutely. Don't hate that pick at all. He's coming up on my list shortly, just not yet. But my number 17 might surprise you. It was a player that I really didn't like missing out on in our rookie draft. Kyle Williams, wide receiver out of New England.
What is it about Kyle Williams that you like?
I think there's a possibility, there's a universe where he is the number 2 wide receiver this year in New England. I don't think they're sold on Pop Douglas or Beauty or Bourne, but I think Diggs will open up the year as the number 1, and he needs a viable number 2 opposite him. And I've heard around sources around the league, they were upset that they didn't get Kyle Williams, so we'll see.
Yeah, I like Kyle Williams as well in that situation. I think there is a non-zero chance that Polk could have a bounce back this year, especially if they put Stickum on his hands.
Yeah, he needs to catch.
But I'm not a big fan of Pop Douglas. I never really bought that bandwagon. And
Yeah.
Baker, I don't know if Baker can be anything either. They have a lot of wide receiver threes on that team, and we'll see how that shakes out.
Absolutely. And then my number 18 is Jaden Higgins for Houston.
Notoriously low on all things Houston.
Well, Alex, your overjoy for them makes me have to even you out slightly. I've never seen a guy say that every pick is amazing for a team other than you.
I don't say every pick is amazing.
Your last few first and second round picks you've been enamored with.
Those are the only ones that they seem to hit unless they draft an offensive lineman and then they completely strike out.
That's true. But you loved Anderson and Stroud, and I remember how surprised you were that year that they traded up to the 3rd spot.
Hey, Anderson is one of the top outside linebackers and edge rushers in the league,
Yeah,
or defensive
I
end
would
if you want
agree.
to put him there, whatever. Stroud is one of the most promising young quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, he was getting some heaps of praise from the national media this week, putting up with the situation that he's in with a defensive coach and a fluctuating offensive coordinator and not a good offensive line and hurt receiver. So he was actually getting some national media praise this week that
Okay,
he wasn't put into a great position.
but what I'm hearing from you is you say I talk up my players, but yet everyone I've talked up has actually been good.
Except for Tank Dell. But yeah,
No, Tank Dell was good. He just had his knee obliterated.
was good. He hasn't played a whole season yet. He's Will Fuller in that regard.
No, he's not. Will Fuller, it was constant ticky-tack injuries forever. It is always hamstrings or quad or whatever. Tank Dell had his knee obliterated.
Twice, right? Wasn't it on a quarterback sneak and then also
Yeah, those are putting him in a situation where he had no chance to be successful in the first place. You don't put a 165-pound player like in a goal line formation or short yardage formation. This is the stupidest thing ever. He has
Yeah.
no business blocking a 250-pound linebacker. That, but you can acknowledge, Jeff, that I talked him up in the pre-draft process. I liked him when Texans took him. You
Mhm.
didn't think he was going to be anything, and he was very good until he got hurt.
I would agree, but you also talked up one Damian Pierce as well, and I
And he
think
had the
history has
longest
spoken for
run of
them.
the season. He had the longest run of the season this year. So I will be fair that Damian Pierce is not working out, and I'm still surprised he's on the team right now, but we'll see.
Dude, when you guys
That
traded Cam Akers last year instead of him, I was like, do you guys really not want to win games? Because even with Minnesota, Cam Akers looked halfway decent when needed to fill in. I was like, do you have running backs that you can just give away like that? Like, what is happening?
I don't think Cam Akers looked that great. I wonder if maybe there's something else going on with Damian Pierce that makes them want to keep holding on to him, but I don't
He's
know.
got some blackmail on somebody in that organization. You're right.
Well, he clearly didn't fit Bobby Slowick's system at all. He might fit Kaylee's system. I don't know. He definitely is pretty solid as a return man at the very least. So they could keep him for that reason. And you can't really keep Akers for special teams. So that could be why. I don't know. But yes,
Yeah, I think
that's
though with Mixon though, I think backup running back is a important piece as well. But hopefully they
but
know what they're doing.
that is one I will take the L on. I'll take that.
Yeah. I hope they know
But
what
I
they're
wa-
doing at running back though.
but I did also call the Nico Collins third year breakout.
You
So
did,
I'll
but
take
that was a man. Kudos to you for hanging into the third year. Like that is hard in Dynasty. Like it is sometimes you need to rip that band-aid after year one. Like I have Jermaine
uh,
Burton in the league and I don't like him at all right now.
yeah. Burton was a dart throw though, like late dart throw. And that is the hard thing about Dynasty because we do want like immediate success, but
Mhm.
that is mostly a rarity. So then it's like, do I hang on to this guy year two? Do I hang on to this guy year three? At what point do I pull the trigger? If I cut him or trade him, is he immediately gonna blow up for somebody else? That's the challenge with Dynasty, for
Yeah, my
better or
best
worse.
late round pick though was Thomas Rawls, and I'll keep bringing him up here. I think I got him in a fourth round of a rookie draft when we did 4 rounds.
I mean, hey, Bucky Irving went undrafted in one of our leagues, and you paid a lot in free agency to get him, but it still looks like it worked out.
Every penny. I know what I like.
Well,
All
that's
right.
good, man. All right, so I
So
think
my
it's my
18th was
18.
Jaden Higgins, and I know we talked Jaden Higgins talk here for quite some time.
So I'll just go back to back here. My 18 is Jack Beck or Betch, depending on how you want to say it. And then Kyle Williams is my 19. I think both these guys have a lot of upside, have a lot of potential to carve a role. I like Betch more for the situation he's in with the Raiders and being able to block as well as being a really good weapon all around. I think he complements Bowers a lot. So it really shows you the type of system that they're building there. I like both of these
You know
guys,
how I
and
feel.
they're in the same tier for me.
You know how I feel about Gino versus May. I just think May is that much better of a thrower than Gino ever will be. So go with the better quarterback, the better younger quarterback.
I think he has more upside, but I think where they're at right now is surprisingly similar, in my opinion.
Show. All right. So we are on my number 19, and that is Jack Beck. So he appears for me right after Kyle Williams and Jaden Higgins. And then my number 20 is Cam Scatterbo.
So we're in striking distance for a lot of these players. So
Uh-huh.
we're getting to the point where we're getting pretty similar here.
Yeah, there's players that you're going to end up with because they're a little bit higher, and there's players that I'm going to end up with because they're a little bit higher
So
on our individual
my
lists.
My number 20 guy is the other Houston wide receiver, Jalen Noel.
Okay.
I think that Tank Dell is probably not going to be super effective by the time he does come back, and his contract will be up. I don't know if they'll even extend him or not. And Noel is probably the direct replacement. And now they have three really good wide receivers, along with Kirk, who might get in the way of Jalen Noel year one from producing, but Noel is going to be one of the return men most likely. I think that makes Houston pretty resilient to have four starting caliber wide receivers in different forms or fashion. But Noel to me is eerily similar to a guy that you like, the wide receiver for Green Bay, Jalen Reed. So I think they're pretty similar type guys. And I'm pretty thrilled with Houston for getting him, and I would like to get Jalen Noel if I could in rookie drafts.
Is that because their first names are Jalen and Jaden?
Yes, Jaden Reed, Jaden, any J name, sure.
All right. Who is your 21? I think we'll have some
My
differences here.
my 21 is Elijah Arroyo, so I
Mm.
do still have him in the same round as you. Just mine is towards the end. And I see him getting taken a lot in the top of the third. So I think that's probably the range that most people see him in.
Yeah, that's
I'm not
the other
sure
thing.
if
ADP.
yeah, I'm not sure if he immediately starts off successful, but I really like his upside and his potential.
Absolutely. Me too. But ADP does matter. Like if you realize that someone's going in the third round and you like him as a second round talent, try not to take him until the end of the second round, even if he's higher on your rankings. So that's playing the game a little bit. Because there are people in redraft that I like better than their draft position by like a considerable margin. And like, why wouldn't I just split the difference? Try to get two people in my range versus just that one player and then someone lower. So I try to double dip on that. That's one of my biggest favorite moves in fantasy. But my number 21 is Bashul Tutin, running back for the Jaguars. He might be the starting running back for the Jaguars here in the next year or two. So we will see, even though he fumbled yesterday.
Yeah, he fumbled in practice already and was a notorious fumbler in college. He's very athletic, very fast, and I think people get carried away with a lot of those players. I think he's a future complement for a Bigsby type running back, and I'm not even saying it will be Bigsby long term because they very well could replace him as well. But I think they want a 1-2 combination. So I see Bashal as more of a complement long term than I do uh, a leader in a committee or anything like that.
All right,
He's not
we'll
a
see.
he's not in my
We're
top
at that
24.
top. We will have at least one different. I just think that he does have a path to potentially start this year, and I know Cohen likes to have his running back. There has to be one, unless there's like an undrafted one on the roster. But my number 22 is Jalen Noel, which is who you just had at number 20. So we're relatively close there. Who's number 22 for you, Alex?
Number 22 for me is running back DJ Giddens, the backup behind Jonathan Taylor for Indianapolis. I think he's super athletic and he is the perfect replacement long term for them if they pass on re signing JT.
They just re-signed him though last year. That'll be interesting because Jonathan Taylor is one of the better running backs in the league, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I don't expect him to have a role in year one or year two, but we will see. And there's also Khalil Herbert on the roster, which was an upgrade at backup that they didn't have before.
I think Giddens is surprisingly really good and much better than his draft selection spot in the NFL draft. I think they are going to use him earlier than you think. That's my guess.
So you think Jonathan Taylor gets some stuff taken away from him?
They probably ease his workload a little bit and get Giddens pretty heavily involved as well.
All right. What round did they take him in? Fourth?
Fifth, I believe.
Fifth? Yeah. I don't know.
He
I feel
was
like we're higher on these late
he
round
was
picks than they are.
He was a third round talent, and this was a very heavy running back class. So I feel like some guys went later because of the depression value.
Yeah. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. There is 10, maybe 8 to 12 consistently startable pieces in every rookie draft. So good luck finding those 8 to 12 pieces that are consistently startable. But that is always the goal here of what we're trying to do here.
Anyway, if you have a dynasty league and you have JT on your team, you might as well take Giddens in the late second, early third,
Uh,
just for that high end handcuff.
I hate handcuffing. It's one of my least favorite strategies out there.
Well, in deep dynasties, it makes sense.
Yeah. I was in a conversation on X about handcuffing Walker to Charbonnet, and I'm like, I would rather grab another high end handcuff for another team, and if their running back goes down, then I have two running backs instead of one if potentially mine goes down.
Yeah,
And
that's
then it's
fair.
usually 90% of the starter, so or less. So you're not even getting the same equivalent.
Oh. Uh, Yeah, I understand that. But speaking of handcuffs and standalone value, my number 23 is another running back, Dylan Sampson, who was also drafted by Cleveland. this time in the fourth round. I think they're trying to recreate a Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt combination like they had in the past through Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson. I think both of them are going to get the ball a lot, and Sampson has a lot of receiving upside and explosive ability as well. So I also like him.
Yeah, I like Samson as well, but not quite yet. And so my number 23 is Jaden Blue, who's actually moving up draft boards right now. And I do believe that he could end up with a large role or the role in Dallas this year. So we'll see if it happens, but there is a path to a significant role for Jaden Blue. And before I let you pick Jaden Blue apart, my number 24 is Dylan Sampson. And then I'll let you finish it off with number 24 after you break down your Jaden Blue analysis.
So, just like with Matthew Golden, I'll just reiterate, I watched a lot of Texas football, and I'm not super high on Jaden Blue. Doesn't have it on film, doesn't have it on analytics. He's very fast. There's potential opportunity in Dallas, but I don't see him really running away with the job. I think he's just a better version of Deuce Vaughn, who you also really liked in that rookie class as well.
I did.
And I think he's just another player like that. I don't see him as a workhorse back. I don't really see him as a lead back. He's more of a change of pace and maybe a receiving type back. I have him on mine as number 38. So he is a fourth round pick for me in rookie drafts.
Whoa. All right. There's a big disparity there. Who's your number 20, Alex?
I have my quarterback number 2 here, Jackson Dart. I
Whoa.
think they took him in the first round. He has a high-end rushing upside. He's probably going to sit for at least the first 7 games, and then they're going to have a terrible record and start to feel pressure to play him and see what they have. So I think he could win some playoff games for people towards the end of the year too,
Interesting.
just with this rushing upside.
Interesting. He runs the risk of having a second coaching staff in year 2 and GM.
Yes.
And they may not like him, and they might go sign a Sam Darnold if he's a free agent again. They may go sign whomever. So he runs a lot of risk from that perspective.
So did Drake May.
Yeah, but Drake May was also the second pick or the third pick in the draft. Also, his arm talent was insane, which I don't hear anyone saying about Jackson Dart. But we'll see. You and I both agree that the quarterbacks, especially after Cameron Ward, were drafted a little bit higher than they should have been.
Well, Sanders went pretty late though.
That's fair. That's fair. And then, Alex, I'll leave you with 2 of my next up that would be honorable mentions, and one of them is your running back Woody Marks and Pat Bryant, wide receiver for Denver, who could be the next Michael Thomas if you buy the hype.
My number 25 would be Elick Iamanor. I also like Mason Taylor and Harold Fannin Jr. as well. And Taj Brooks. You know I love Taj Brooks.
Fannon's going to have an interesting path, though, with his team because he's got a better tight end in front of him and no quarterback situation right now. So, unless you think otherwise.
I think Njoku might not be there next year, and they'll have potentially a different quarterback next year as well.
I would hope so. Doesn't mean better, though. Different doesn't always mean better.
Right. We don't really know. Hopefully, they have their long-term quarterback next year.
Yeah. Well, we'll say the same thing about Carolina, and hopefully Bryce Young is their long-term quarterback, which is still TBD. And they drafted him as a long-term solution. So, but Njoku is still at the top of his game, still a top 8 tight end, would you say, at this point? But he is a free agent after the 2025 season, so we'll see if they re-sign him or not. He's definitely a locker room leader. Guy got burned and played next day, basically.
Yeah, I have a feeling, though, they might be tight on the cap, so they might have to just let him walk.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see. All
Anyway.
right. That is our top 24.
And that does it for this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you all for downloading or listening to this episode. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave us a comment and share the show. Every little bit helps.
You can find us on all podcasting apps by searching N2 Fantasy and with our handle N2E Fantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.
Hi, everybody.